Good day and welcome to Prostate Wellness, More Help. I'd like to pass straight over to Nadia, sorry.
That's okay. Hi everyone. This is More Help, and HELP stands for Holistic Empowerment Lifestyle Program. I've been working alongside Vasco Stevenson now for many years, and the aim of programs like this is to provide information that supports your wellness, to enable you to make informed decisions. And we've got a 2-hour session where we want to ensure that you get information that you will be able to use to support your wellness around the prostate. It's really important that we look at prevention rather than waiting for something to happen. And so the idea here is that we will provide you with information that will help to guide you with the prevention. And if we have a situation where your wellness has gone past the prevention, then we do have experts that will be able to guide you through that part of it as well. So we're here to give support. We're here to make sure that you have all the information that you need. So we're going to have a short presentation about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, where Vasco Stevenson will be able to provide you with information around your health, your well-being, what you should be eating, and a lot more information. So if you got your pens and paper ready, it'd be an ideal time for you to even take down some notes that's going to be relevant to you. So without further ado, I would like you to take in all the information that Vasco is going to be providing us. So Vasco, you can now share your screen with us. Thank you.
Sorry, is that it there? Screen share, can you see it?
So that should be at the... There should be something called share.
Well, I'm looking for it here.
If you hover the...
Okay, but just bear with me half a second.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see it?
The presentation, no, not at this moment. Wonderful. Sure. Yes. So we've got the presentation up. So it's introducing yourself. So as you can see, Vasco Stevenson, he has a website, www.blackhealth.co.uk. Vasco also has 2 radio stations, one Harmony Radio, and as you can see, that's on a Sunday, and LWR Radio, and that's on a Tuesday. Vasco also does body scans, and his number is 0772 556 7262. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Nadia, do you want me to make it bigger, the screen?
No, that's fine, but you will need to do the full screen. So if you could go down to the bottom and the little, yes, that's the one, then we can have a full screen. Thank you.
Okay, you want me to begin, yes?
Yes, please. It's all yours.
Okay. I've been involved with the prostate for since the 1980s, mid-1980s, when 2 of my very good acquaintances died of prostate cancer. And ever since then, it's been one of the challenges that I have decided to address. I make presentations on other aspects of health as well. I also do Black history, I also do current affairs. But the prostate is the one that resonates with me, and it's, I like doing it, okay? So let's move on a little bit. Initially, I'll just take you through The title, Prostate Health and Well-Being. Normally, when anyone phones me about the prostate, they also always talk about prostate cancer, prostate cancer. And this presentation is not about prostate cancer. It is about how to reduce your risk of getting prostate cancer, okay? And that I think you're going to find quite interesting. So let's get straight into it. A little bit of a preamble and then into the herbs and other things that you need to be ingesting to reduce your risk of prostate cancer. So the prostate gland is out of sight and it's usually out of mind, and 70% of adults don't know what it does. It is part of the male reproductive system, and it makes one of the fluids in your semen. African Caribbean men are 3 times more likely to develop prostate cancer than European men. And up to today, no one has been able to give a definitive reason as to why that is the case. And there are 3 main things that can go wrong with the prostate. The first one is called prostatitis. And anywhere you see ending in itis means inflammation. So it's inflammation of the prostate. And then the most common one is benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is a non-cancerous enlargement of the prostate. And of course, we have prostate cancer, which can either be slow growing or aggressive. And evidence shows that in African men, and that includes us, it usually becomes aggressive. So it is something that we should really pay close attention to if it's going to become aggressive. Now, let me also say at this stage that if you have prostate cancer, as long as it is confined to the prostate, it will never threaten your life. It is when it metastasizes from the prostate, goes into the lower part of your back, in the bones there or around your pelvis, that is when it can become, well, it becomes life-threatening, okay? And of course, what we have here is a representation of a bladder with the prostate, this bit here at the bottom, and this is the urethra through which the urine flows when it leaves the bladder, and you're going to void it in the toilet. And as hormonal changes take place as we get a little bit older, this gland, the prostate, has a tendency to swell. And as it swells, it chokes off the urethra so that your urine flow becomes less powerful. Sometimes you may have to go and have an operation on it, but there are natural foods that can actually reduce the prostate. And I will tell you about my personal experience with this, okay? And this is where the prostate gland is, right underneath the bladder. And nature has made the man's body in such a peculiar way that the only way to get to the prostate gland without surgery is by going through the back passage. And this puts a lot of men off because they will go and have the PSA blood test. But when it comes to the digital rectal examination, or DRE, they become a little bit homophobic. But there's no need for that, okay? It's nothing to be afraid of. So what to look out for if you think you have any prostate challenges? Reduce or weak urine flow. When you were 20 years old, you could stand on one side of the street and pee over to the other one like a fire hose, but now it's not that powerful. And as we get older, this is one of the symptoms as well. Getting up often at night to urinate, another symptom. Dribbling, that means that it's like a tap with a faulty washer. Okay, so there's a drip, drip, drip coming all the time. Urgency, which is a very, very nasty one, because if you're taking the missus out for a gala night, and this is your problem, imagine what will happen if you're driving along a motorway and you suddenly have an urge to urinate and you can't contain it. Okay, it can spoil the whole evening. So that is something that is needs urgent attention. Difficulty starting, standing over the toilet bowl and nothing is happening. That can be embarrassing, but at least you're in a confined space. And of course, the dreaded erectile dysfunction. These are the three checks here, the PSA, which measures the protein produced by the prostate gland, and the digital rectal examination, okay? But the digital rectal examination is not as, as bad as this cartoon demonstrates. I put this in for a little bit of fun and to make you smile, okay? I don't want everyone looking grim and serious throughout the whole presentation. And I'll tell you the honest truth, I wouldn't have a digital rectal examination from a guy who had fingers like this, I promise you. So what to look out for? These are less common symptoms. New pain in the lower part of your back, hip, or pelvis. That would be an indication that perhaps you have prostate cancer that has spread out of the prostate and into your bones. Blood in your urine or semen, that's another indicator. And some men with prostate cancer may have no symptoms at all. And this is the one that is, to my mind, most frightening, because you're going along your business and you have no signs at all, but you have prostate cancer. So when you do get a chance to diagnose it, perhaps it may be too far gone. So the importance of this is that every year you should go and have your prostate gland checked. The two checks, the PSA blood test and the digital rectal examination, not the one without the other, okay? Now, we get into the lifestyle part of it, which is what I'm going to major in this evening. There's something called the andropause. The same way females go through a menopause, men go through a change of life, which is not as clearly defined as the menopause. This one is more subtle. But a lot of GPs do not refer to it as the andropause. They simply say low testosterone, okay? The andropause is a condition that is associated with the decrease in the male hormone testosterone. It is unlike menopause in that the decrease in testosterone and the development of symptoms is more gradual than what occurs in women. So it's not as clearly defined, more subtle. Men who experience symptoms associated with the andropause have lower amounts of bioavailable testosterone in their blood. Therefore, tissues in the body that are stimulated by testosterone receive a lower amount of it, which may cause various physical and possibly mental changes in the person, such as mood swings and fatigue. So men going through the andropause suffer from some of the symptoms of women going through the menopause, okay? Mood swings, fatigue. So your hormones are telling you that something is not right. There's an imbalance somewhere. Testosterone is responsible for deep voices, muscle mass, and facial and body hair patterns found in males. As men get older, the level of testosterone in the body and the production of sperm gradually becomes lower, and they experience physical and psychological symptoms as a result of these low levels. This is part of the natural aging process, and it is estimated, and this bit is important, testosterone decreases about 10% every decade after men reach the age of 30. So by the time you get to 40, you've only got 90%. By the time you get to 50, you've got 80%. And every 10 years, it decreases by about 10%. And if testosterone is the male hormone that gives him his sex drive and his physical drive and all these other things, and it's decreasing once he hits the age of 30, what should that man be doing to ensure that his testosterone levels stay up and that he can still do what is considered to be a man's job? Although symptoms may vary from person to person, common symptoms in men going through the andropause include low sex drive, difficulty getting erections or erections that are not as strong as usual, lack of energy, depression, irritability and mood swings, loss of strength or muscle mass, increased body fat, and hot flashes. Okay, so if you're suffering from any of these, pause for a moment and think to yourself, could I be suffering from low testosterone? Based on studies and latest research, it does not appear that testosterone causes prostate cancer. Now, I do research almost every day on many different aspects of health and other things. And this report, I was a little bit stumped when I read it. It doesn't appear that testosterone causes prostate cancer, nor that it has a negative impact on men who already have the disease. And this is coming from scientists and doctors. At the same time, another hormone, estrogen, seems to play the main role in the disease. So what we have now is an imbalance in the two hormones of testosterone and estrogen. Men also have estrogen, but in small amounts compared to the testosterone. Women have testosterone, but in small amounts compared to the estrogen. So here we're talking about what happens if there is an imbalance in these two hormones. Signs and symptoms of elevated estrogen in men, same thing as low testosterone, low libido, breast development. I think the official word for this is gynecomastia, okay? Where you find man boobs, that is what people usually call them. Infertility is also one of the side effects, weight gain, okay? All of these associated with testosterone and not estrogen and not testosterone. So here are some things you can do to boost your testosterone, okay? If you have your camera, you can take a quick shot of this screen. I'm going to leave it there for a few seconds. It'll take a long time to write it all down, okay? Intermittent fasting. Eating healthy fats. Now, what would constitute healthy fats? We're talking here about olive oil, coconut oil, avocado, not dairy at all, not fats from dairies, okay? This is plant-based healthy fats. Have a liver cleanse. I've got a specific formula for cleansing the liver. Can be done in about 4 weeks, okay? Reduce stress. Get vitamin D3. Very important to have vitamin D3. Get rid of sugar from your diet. When we talk about sugar, we are not talking about the 2 lumps you put in your cup of tea necessarily. It's the hidden sugars, the ones in cakes and biscuits and buns and white bread and all of those different, should I say, simple carbohydrates that you consume. Get quality sleep, which is particularly important because when you sleep, especially in darkness, there's a little gland in the middle of the brain called the pineal gland, which produces 4 main hormones. And it is important, therefore, to get quality sleep for those 4 hormones to be produced by this small gland. Lower body fat, which is obvious. And if you are up to it, you can engage in weight training. I wouldn't encourage senior people to engage in weight training, but going walking or going out for the evening and having a little twirl around the dance floor or something like that, gentle exercise is important. To rebalance our hormones and reclaim our manhood, we got to start doing these 5 things. Getting rid of the extra estrogen out of the body, start making more testosterone naturally, stop the conversion of unused testosterone into estrogen, and stop ingesting fake estrogen in the food, water, and air. Case in point, if you have plastic water bottles and you leave them in the boot of your car on a sunny day, you can start getting something called xenoestrogen, okay? And there's a particular food that is, I would say almost ubiquitous in that it is in about 60% of processed foods that we buy. It's a product that I don't entertain at all. It's called soy or soya, and it's a known hormone disruptor. Okay, so check your foods before you buy them or ingest them. And here is one called dilemonine. It's called the estrogen antidote. Sorry, I'm hearing people talking in the background. Sorry? Okay. Dilemonine, the estrogen antidote. Put a whole lemon in your juicer and blend it with a few green leaves like spinach or kale and drink the concoction, okay? That will help reduce estrogen, and in doing so, it increases testosterone. Or you can freeze a whole lemon, then grate it, put some gloves on because it's going to be freezing cold, and drink it with some water. This is particularly important. So when you use the lemons, don't throw away the skin. Put the skin in your blender, blend it, put a little bit of honey or something because it's not going to taste palatable, and drink it that way, okay? That reduces your estrogen level. A study of the impact of a plant-based diet on prostate cancer. In this latest report, which was conducted by researchers at the University of South Carolina's Arnold School of Public Health, the consensus was that the flavonoids, that is substances in plant that have antioxidant and other benefits, such as in fruits and vegetables, herbs and teas, may provide men with a 25% lower risk of developing aggressive prostate cancer. And here I'm addressing this to Africans, because earlier on I did say that when Africans get cancer, it has a tendency to become aggressive. The allium family, which includes garlic, onions, leeks, and chives, have been shown to help kill prostate cancer cells. It also reduces a swollen prostate. And I myself can testify to this because I went through the same period where your urine flow becomes not as strong as it used to be. And in my research, I came across the idea that you should eat red onions raw. And I tried it, and bingo, my urine flow improved, which indicated that the prostate had started to shrink back to a normal size, okay? Tomatoes contain a compound called lycopene, which slows prostate cancer growth and metastasis. Metastasis simply means the spread of prostate cancer. And when it comes to tomatoes, buy them as red as you can, because that means they're full of lycopene, and eat them slightly cooked with a little bit of black pepper, okay? That way the body can absorb more lycopene from the tomato. It was found that men in the category of highest intake of allium vegetables had a statistically significant lower risk of contracting prostate cancer than those who did not eat these vegetables. And what are these vegetables? They are onions, leeks, garlic, shallots, anything in that family is known as the allium family, okay? Now, this one is talking about fungal prostatitis, and it may be slightly out of sync here. So I'm going to skip it for a moment and go to the next one. Coconut oil for hormone balance. The health benefits of coconut oil include hormone balance as well. So if your hormones are slightly out of balance, then if you start ingesting coconut oil, that may redress that imbalance, okay? And what does the trick in the coconut oil is this compound known as lauric acid. So let me go through a couple of these about coconut oil. A study published in the journal Antimicrobial Agents and Chemotherapy found the capric acid and the lauric acid in coconut oil made for an effective natural treatment for Candida albicans and yeast infection. So when we talk about Candida albicans and yeast infection, what we're talking about here is prostatitis. Yep. So prostatitis being one of the big three when it comes to the prostate gland, you can start eating coconut oil. And it does a lot more in the body, but tonight we are focusing on the prostate. Coconut oil has two qualities that help it fight cancer, including the ketones produced in the oil. Now, these ketones are exceptionally good for helping keep dementia and Alzheimer's at bay as well. Tumor cells are not able to access the energy in ketones and are glucose dependent. Okay, so if they get glucose, they will spread. But if they can't get glucose and they're getting ketones instead from the coconut oil, they will not spread. So add coconut oil to your dietary regime. Studies have found that coconut oil may be an excellent fat to eat during menopause, that's for women, but also for men, and may also have positive effect on estrogen levels. In order to naturally balance hormones, reduce your sugar and grain consumption and load up on healthy fats from coconut, avocado, flaxseed, and the Indian butter called ghee. You can also consume other coconut forms such as coconut butter or coconut water. Plus, research shows that lauric acid found in coconut oil may have anti-cancer actions by triggering anti-cancer proliferation. That means it stops the cancer from spreading, and pro-apoptotic effects, which means the cancer cells then kill themselves, a process known as apoptosis, okay? Cancer suicide. To effectively kill the yeast Candida, you must remove processed sugar and refined grains from your diet and consume plenty of healthy fats. Take 1 tablespoon of coconut oil 3 times daily as a supplement, right? And if you don't like the taste, you can sprinkle a little bit of powdered cinnamon on it, 1/2 teaspoon, and that will help. Coconut oil's lauric acid, monolaurin, which has been shown to reduce Candida, that's the yeast that causes prostatitis, fight bacteria, and create a hostile environment for viruses. So viruses can't live in this hostile environment that's created by the coconut oil's lauric acid, okay? Many diseases today are caused by the overgrowth of bad bacteria and fungus and viruses and parasites in the body, and that's where you get prostatitis from. Now we come to another one, and this is one of my favorites as well, the role of curcumin in the chemo prevention of prostate cancer. Curcumin is the compound in turmeric, okay? Curcumin has been shown to have anti-proliferative, antioxidant, and anti-carcinogenic effects. Curcumin reduces the expression of androgen receptors and also inhibits the binding of androgen receptors to the prostate-specific antigen gene to decrease the PSA expression in hormone-dependent cells. This could inhibit tumor progression to hormone-dependent status. So bingo, in with the turmeric. To my mind, it's the best herb in the world, the #1 herb in the world, okay? Incidentally, whenever you're using turmeric, you should also use it with a little bit of black pepper, because the compound, the curcumin, is not readily absorbed by the body unless the compound from the black pepper, which is piperine, is present. Got it? Curcumin also suppresses the crosstalk between prostate cancer cells. So it prevents prostate cancer cells from communicating with each other, okay? And any of the surrounding osteoblasts, like in your bones and all of that, it prevents this metastasis, moving from one place to the other. And curcumin, as we said earlier, promotes apoptosis of the prostate cancer cells, both through the mitochondrial and the receptor-mediated pathways. So that's technical stuff, which I'm not getting into. Okay, so can someone please admit these people so that if I click on that, it will probably interfere with the presentation. Can you hear me? Okay. Curcumin also targets cancer stem cells, which are responsible for the initial growth of the tumor and for treatment failure, okay? Additionally, it acts against miRNAs, which target both the tumor suppressor genes and oncogenes, preventing tumor initiation. So curcumin, exceptionally good for the prostate. Now we come to another, should I say, a trace mineral. Studies show that men with benign prostatic hyperplasia, that is a swollen prostate gland that is not cancerous, can benefit from increasing iodine intake. Now, evidence shows that 20% of women around the world who have breast cancer are deficient in iodine. And remember, the breasts in women correlate to the prostate in men. Okay? So iodine is where you can go to help prevent the progression of any kind of swelling of the prostate into cancer. Addressing the iodine deficiency can halt the progression of cysts, because that's how they begin, as a cyst, then it turns into a nodule, and then it goes right through to hyperplasia, and then you have the problem. And where is the best place to get iodine? It says here that in men with BPH, 5 milligrams daily of iodine solution improved urine flow and reduced PSA values over an 8-month period. This study is excellent news because it demonstrates that men can have control over their prostate health by consuming iodine supplements. Now, I'm going to tell you right now where you can get some excellent iodine, and you'll be shocked at this. It is called Irish moss. Any sea vegetable, okay? Irish moss, bladderwrack, full of iodine. And if you like eating fish, then the particular fish is sea bass, full of iodine, okay? So add that to your dietary regime and you reduce your risk of prostate cancer. Iodine seems to prevent prostate cancer cells from increasing their rate of growth. So it slows that rate down, even if your immune system is not strong. That's fantastic news, isn't it? Iodine is vitally important to ensuring prostate gland health. The body's endocrine system, which is your glandular system, rely on iodine to function. The prostate, the thyroid, the pancreas, the breasts, the ovaries, the uterus, iodine concentrates in these tissues to maintain the structure of glands like the prostate. Prostate enlargement is reduced by quercetin with bromelain. And here I put the sources of quercetin, onions, yes, and you don't have to necessarily eat the onions. You can put the red, what we call the Spanish onions, into your blender, make it into juice and drink it. The key to this is eating it raw, not cooked, okay? And if you're using bromelain as well, if you want bromelain into your system, just eat pineapples. Okay, this bromelain is particularly important in that it helps alkalize the body, and the cancer cells cannot survive in an alkaline environment, as you know. So they cloak themselves in a protein called fibrin and hide away. And if your immune system then becomes compromised and get weaker, that's when they'll manifest and start spreading again. But as long as you are eating foods that are alkalizing your body, you're reducing your chances of anything untoward happening. And zinc, okay? The prostate gland stores zinc. In actual fact, it is said that about 80% of the zinc in your body is in your prostate gland, and it helps to keep the prostate gland healthy. So the prostate gland stores zinc, which not only prevents prostate enlargement, but may also help to shrink a prostate gland that's already swollen. Make sure that you are getting the recommended daily allowance, 15 milligrams per day. Now, as Africans, I would say that we need a bit more than that, 25 milligrams per day, okay? And you can get it through foods such as pumpkin seeds, oysters, nuts, and beans, or by taking a zinc supplement. And vitamin B1, when there is a deficiency of vitamin B1, it causes disorders in glucose metabolism and insufficient energy production at the same time. It can cause the accumulation of pyruvic acid and lactic acid in nerves, leading to dysfunction or incontinence of your prostate gland. Okay? Incontinence, of course, we all know where you have this dribbling, and it can be quite embarrassing if you're in public. Scientists have demonstrated that boron lowers prostate-specific antigen, or PSA, and may help prevent or control the spread of prostate cancer. Other evidence links boron to a reduced cognitive decline. So here's a double plus for you. If you're eating foods that contain boron, then it reduces your risk of suffering from dementia, cognitive decline. Okay? If the deficiency is allowed to continue, the fluid within the cyst solidifies. I think this is relating to what we were speaking about a little bit earlier, and becomes nodules. So prolonged iodine deficiency can result in a swelling of the prostate, which precedes cancer. The final result of this enlargement, of course, is cancer. And when iodine levels are sufficient, these glands remain healthy with normal tissue structure. But in the presence of an iodine deficiency, the glands begin to develop cysts, which turn into nodules, which turn into swelling. So here are the worst foods for prostate health: red and processed meat, white potatoes, calcium and dairy products, sugar, canned tomato products, French fries or chips, farmed salmon, and artificial sweeteners. What can you do about it? Drinking milk regularly doubles the risk of prostate problems. That is milk from cows, okay? Eating meat every day triples the risk. Not eating vegetables quadruples the risk. And of course, you should exercise. And I use that word liberally because I'm talking here about two different types of exercise, both of them physical. What can you do about it? You should eat more avocados, coconut products, sweet potato, blueberries, tomatoes, broccoli, garlic, turmeric, ginger, cayenne pepper, cinnamon, Jamaican allspice, cloves, holy basil, right away down the line. Okay, and I hope that you took advantage of my offer to take your camera and take a picture of this. Supplements that may help: vitamin A, vitamin D3, which a lot of us are deficient in, believe it or not, vitamin E, and vitamin C, the controller, the midfield player that controls all the other vitamins. So you may be taking other vitamins, but if your vitamin C is low, those vitamins are not going to do you a lot of good, okay? Because they work better in the presence of vitamin C. And remember that vitamin C cannot be stored, so you constantly have to replenish it like vitamin B, okay? And of course, zinc, selenium, which you will get from eating 2 Brazil nuts per day or eating green leaf coriander, magnesium, which you can get from drinking cocoa, or there's a little thin vegetable called asparagus, and lots of other things where you can find it. And beta sitosterol, the main source of which is avocados. Okay. And you can also do something called Kegels, which is pelvic floor exercises. Imagine that you're going to the loo, you're standing at a bus stop, and you imagine you're going to the loo to do a number 2 job, a big job, and you're squeezing your buttocks together, squeezing it in, and you're trying to hold it. Nobody knows you're doing this exercise, by the way. And the same thing applies to if you say, right, I'm going to urinate, and you're squeezing it in. Because at the bottom of your gut, there are muscles that hold your gut up, and these muscles don't normally get exercise. So use it or lose it, and this is one way to help strengthen your pelvic floor muscles. Okay? Right. African Caribbean, and African American men who would have qualified for watchful waiting, that is, you have a prostate issue, but it's not sufficiently bad for them to carry out any kind of operation. They're going to say, okay, it's not too bad. We see you next year. That's watchful waiting, okay? We're significantly more likely than whites to have a higher grade cancer that was not detected by standard tests and biopsies. This comes from the Johns Hopkins Hospital, America's #1 hospital for the last 28 years or so. And what they're saying here is because all of their equipment is tested on white rabbits, rats, mice, what have you, none of them melanated. When Africans get a figure for anything at all, they should add another number to it. So if they tell you it's 6, you say, okay, it's 7. Because they don't use melanated animals to test. And they were brave enough to come up and say this in 1913. Recent report from Clinical Cancer Research. Afro-American men who suffer from aggressive prostate cancer were low in vitamin D. So check your vitamin D levels, okay?
Wow.
Sorry?
Yes, thank you, Vasco. It's really good.
Okay. I'm coming to the end of it now. I'll tell you 10 minutes for question times, okay? And if you're going to buy a supplement, remember, it must say D3. If you're buying anything other than D3, it is synthetic, and your body will just see it as a foreign object and will not absorb it, okay? It must say D3, and preferably sprays or drops that you put under your tongue. Pimento, excuse me, or Jamaican allspice caused a 55% reduction in prostate cancer growth and also caused prostate cancer cells to self-destruct. And this was from the University of Miami researchers in 2014. Okay, and that's me. Every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, I'm on oneharmonyradio.com, and that's repeated on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock in the morning. And every Tuesday night from 9 to 11, I'm on LWR Radio. And when you get there, you seek out the platform called LWR Talk.
Thank you so much, Vasco. Lovely.
And here's the summary. Have an MOT every year, okay? Reduce your consumption of dairy products because the food chain is very contaminated anyway. Take a vitamin D3 supplement. Do not ignore symptoms. Eat more green vegetables. Add zinc, tomatoes, turmeric, coconut oil, red onions, boron, and sea vegetables to your diet. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Excellent.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to, first of all, address that there is one message in the chat.
Yes.
Lewis said there are a number of vitamins mentioned in Vasco Stevenson's presentation. These include zinc, B1, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin C. How does one confirm one's current levels? Would I be right in assuming an annual blood test would highlight one's current status?
Okay, you can come and have a body scan with me, or I can come and have a body scan done at your place. And my machine will tell us about your endocrine system, how your glands are functioning, what vitamins you don't have or have, and the state of the vitamins. We also check your immune system, and we also check your trace minerals as well to see whether you've got enough, of these minerals like zinc. Zinc is a mineral, yes, and magnesium and other things in your body. And of course, you've got my number on the screen already.
Thank you for that. The other thing as well is that in your presentation, you had dates related to 2013. Have you done any research to see whether changes have been made since then?
Yes, I research regularly, and where those particular items are concerned, there's not been a great amount of change. Okay, but there are changes, especially with regard to prostatitis. And I've come across a series of doctors who are saying that it is not really what we've been told all these years ago. But I am doing some cross-referencing before I put it into my presentation. I don't accept what one or two people say. It has to come from multiple sources that I can cross-reference before I bring it into the public domain.
Okay. The other question, should D3 vitamin be taken with K2? Are you aware whether
I'm aware of that, yes. I know that when people go to the doctors, they get vitamin D3 with K2. It is not 100% necessary, but it is important if you understand what both of these vitamins do, especially where your bones are concerned, okay? Because vitamin D3 also strengthens your bones, and vitamin K2 especially strengthens your bones. Okay, remember there are two K vitamins, K1 and K2. K1 is the one that prevents you from bleeding out if you get cut.
Okay.
Yep. K2 is the one that strengthens your bones.
Okay, lovely.
Hi there. Just a
I'd
quick
like
question.
to open up the floor to anyone wanting to ask questions. If you could just put your hands up, and then I'll be able to allow you to ask questions.
I think we have Peter.
Okay, go ahead, Peter. Can't hear you,
Unmute,
Peter.
unmute.
You unmute. Peter, please unmute.
Yeah, I've unmuted now.
Okay.
Yeah, the last screen that Vasco showed, I wanted to take a screenshot of it, but I missed it. Can you just put that up for us, please?
The last screen.
Yeah.
Is that the one that said summary? The one that said
Yeah.
have an MOT every year,
Yeah.
decrease your consumption of dairy products?
Yeah, that's the one.
The very last one, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, before
One
the
before
advert. Right at the
just
end.
before that one. That's
Yeah,
the-
just before. That's the one. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Great. If anybody else would like to take a picture of that, I'd just like to highlight that this has been recorded, and also it's on it will be on radio station
Fresh
over the
FM
next.
Radio London.
Absolutely. So
Broadcast
there
Thank
is
you.
prostate health programs
opportunity.
every week.
Okay.
Vasco, somebody's asking for the cost of the scan,
Your body scan.
body scan.
I would rather the person speak to me before I put out the cost of the scan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got your contact. There was one of your slides that had your contact details. If they
Yes.
would like to take a photo of that, then that's it. So you can be contactable on that number. Okay.
Okay.
So anybody again that wishes to contact Vasco Direct, please take a picture of this. I hope that you found the information useful and that you'd be able to make an informed decision. I'm going to pass this over to Rudy, who's going to be taking the second half with Frank. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Nadia. And as usual, Pasco, well informed, lots of information there.
Thank you.
Right. Is Dr. Frank online?
Okay, I shall come out of screen sharing.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Yes, thanks.
So, Dr. Frank, are you there? Because if Dr. Frank hasn't come out yet, then I'll have a dialogue with Vasco until maybe he joins.
Okay.
We haven't spoken for a little while, Rudy.
That's right. That's right.
There are rumors going around that you're avoiding me for some reason or other. You owe me a pint of cider or something like that.
At least.
Okay.
Hi Vasco, it's Peter here. I haven't seen you.
I
since...
know it's you. I know it's you, Pete.
I haven't seen you since I was last down in London.
Couple of years ago.
Yeah, when we was helping Nadia.
Yes, with the project.
With the project. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm okay. But if you want to see me, all you have to do is say, I'm having a birthday party. Here's an invitation. Come on up.
All right. Okay.
Okay. I think
how's the family? Okay.
Everybody's good. Thank you. Everybody's good. Everybody's good.
Wonderful.
Okay.
I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah. And how's everybody at your side?
At my side, everyone is good as well. They're all
Brilliant.
alive and well and kicking, you know.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent, guys. If we could proceed with the prostate health.
Good show.
Wellness. I think what we'll do is Frank hasn't joined yet, but David Michael has joined.
Mm-hmm.
And David Michael is going to do a presentation with somebody with the lived experience as it pertains to prostate cancer. And so, David, if you're ready, we can go straight to you. Give you 15 minutes to talk.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, very good. So I haven't got any slides, and I'm just going to give... Sorry, am I getting some feedback about my voice?
I'm just going to have a look to see.
Go ahead, David.
Go.
Okay, but I'm hearing another conversation, Rudy. It's a bit
I've just muted.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to talk, share a few insights in the experience of a survivor of prostate cancer. So I had some awareness about prostate cancer. I'd been to some social functions where there'd been a guest urologist, and so also I had listened to a very good program on BBC Women's Hour by Benjamin Zephaniah, and he had given insights into prostate cancer. So in 2008, there came a time when I went to my general practitioner, and I didn't go to see her about anything to do with prostate or prostate cancer at all. I can't quite remember what I went to see her about. But while I was there, I said to her, "Doc, would it be possible to have the PSA blood test?" And I was very fortunate, unlike some experiences of some other men and some other black men where doctors have either ignored them or put them down for coming to see them when they're not in pain, or from their point of view, you trying to tell me how to do my job. So I was very fortunate that my general practitioner, when I said to her, "Can we do the PS test?" she got the blood forms and she did did the PSA, it's prostate-specific antigen, which is just a way of measuring, checking on the general health of the prostate. And it's the first indicator of the health of your prostate. So she did the test, and when I came back, incidentally, when she was doing the test, she did the blood test, but she also did a digital rectal examination. And because it's a female doctor, she asked me if I needed a chaperone to be present. I told her I didn't, because obviously she's a consummate professional. And I'll go back to the second bit of the test in a little while. So I came back for the result, and she said to me, your PSA, your prostate-specific antigen, is slightly raised. Didn't tell me raised from what to what, and she didn't tell me what it meant or what should happen next. So I said to her, Doc, would it be possible to send me to the urology clinic at the hospital? And again, fortunately for me, she just did the referral, and I went to specialist at Guy's Hospital urology clinic, and I had some further tests, including where they take a sample on your prostate.
The biopsy.
The biopsy, yeah, that's it. And when I came back for the result, the consultant told me that, yes, I did have prostate cancer. So when I went back for the result, I knew there was something different, because on my previous appointments, there was either just one person, but on that day, there was someone else sitting in the room. And obviously, in hindsight, I wished I had brought a family member with me to get the result. But nevertheless, I was told I had prostate cancer, and they needed to do. So that was also when the GP had done the digital rectal examination. She had found there was a node. Basically, there was some. The prostate wasn't smooth and flat like when I was born. So obviously, if there's a change in your body, there's some indication that something may not be right. So the consultant penciled in a date for the procedure. But in the meantime, I had, which was the most challenging time for me, I had to have an MRI scan. That's when your whole body goes into a machine so that you can be x-rayed. And basically, the purpose of the x-ray was to check whether the cancer had spread from outside the capsule of my prostate and maybe even traveled to my bones. So how it works is, if the cancer spreads before it's diagnosed or caught, it goes through your lymph nodes. It goes out of the capsule of the prostate to your lymph nodes, and it goes to different organs of your body and even to the bones. So that's how people get secondary cancer. But that was the most challenging time for me, waiting a period for the result to find out whether the cancer had spread to my bones. Obviously, if it does spread to your bones, you're not in a very good place. So thankfully for me, the cancer had remained inside the capsule of the prostate. So that meant whatever treatment I had didn't have to be very harsh. And before I had gone away, the consultant had spoken to me about various options of treatment. And but by the time I came back, he'd said to me they'd had a case conference because of my age and relatively and good health. They recommended that I should have a radical prostatectomy. That means basically just whipping out the diseased prostate from out of your body. And to be honest, with all the options they suggested, that would have been my favorite option anyway. And so I had an amazing consultant who I'd read up on him, and as he was going through the medical profession, he'd won every prize going, and he was the first surgeon in Britain to go abroad to learn to do keyhole surgery and robotic surgery. So basically I had so rather than a porter wheeling me down to the operating theatre, the consultant came up himself and wheeled me down to the theatre and did the procedure. And when I woke up after spending a bit of time in the recovery room, he asked me if I was ready for a glass of water, and he himself came and put the straw in my mouth and gave me the cup to have some water. Now, there are side effects to when you have your prostate removed. Basically, you have to use a catheter for a while, whilst the bladder basically comes back. The join into the bladder has to heal up. So you have to use a catheter, and there are, depending how far your cancer's gone, there are various side effects that after the treatment. Yeah, so one of my side effects was losing complete control of my bowel, not my bowel, my bladder. And so I had to do exercises, pelvic floor exercises, to basically get back the strength for my bladder to work to its full capacity. And I don't want to repeat any of what was gone on in the first hour, but basically I was alerted during my treatment, and obviously immediately after, how important diet and lifestyle is. And so, for example, before my procedure, I was always on the go doing this and that, and basically having a lot of takeaway meals. And it kind of really helped me to realize the importance of having sensible diets and cutting down on the takeaways and being mindful of sugar, salt, and fat in the diet, which probably helps your general health anyway. But I was, so pretty much when I was diagnosed and going through the treatment, basically I notified all the closest men in my family. And then some people treat a diagnosis as a secret thing or something that they really feel uncomfortable about. I was very, very comfortable basically to tell every male that I knew that I had been diagnosed, I had been treated, and basically they should try to get ahead of it by getting a PSA blood test done as soon as possible, and then getting a PSA blood test done every year to check their health of their prostate, because obviously early testing, diagnosis, and treatment definitely saves lives. And I will give you an example with my own family where for certainly one of my brothers, it didn't go anywhere as well as me. My father died at 91, but he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so I had a brother, he was 65 at the time, and he had prostate cancer, and it had spread to his bones, and he passed away, because obviously once the cancer spreads to your bones, nothing can be done. So that's what, in my remarks, I'm saying to you, to all the men listening, and any family members, that prostate cancer is generally referred to as a silent killer, because when I went to see my GP, I was not in pain, I was not in any discomfort, I didn't have any of when Dr. Frank talks, I'm sure he'll mention the symptoms, although prostate cancer in itself doesn't give symptoms, but because of its proximity to the bladder, there are certain symptoms. So I had nothing, I had no pain, no symptoms. And you can easily see why, if you don't get early testing, diagnosis, and treatment, how you can end up like my brother, who wasn't so fortunate. So before I round off to let Rudy move on, all I will say to all the guys listening, many times there will be presentations like this, and someone might say, oh, that's interesting. One of these days I'll go and see my doctor, and basically they just put it to the back of their minds. But the message I'm giving tonight is basically, I'm asking you to go and see your doctor tomorrow or before the end of the week and get your PSA blood test done. Don't just say you might do it one day, because, as I said, I didn't have any symptoms, I didn't have any pain, and if I hadn't been diagnosed and treated, basically I would have ended the same way that my brother did, and that would be passing away several years. So I got diagnosed in 2008, treated in 2009, and I've been cancer-free ever since. And I still take my PSA blood test every year.
Thank you very much for that, David. Heartfelt presentation. Just before you go, and we will come back to you as well once Frank's had a few words. Yeah. There's a question: how old were you when you had your appointment with the GP and were diagnosed? And
yeah, so 2008. 2008 from 1953. Anybody
okay.
gets one?
So you would have been in your 40s?
Yeah.
Sounds like. Okay. And I guess Frank's going to talk about this as well. And I've put a link in the chat room where there's a discussion with urologists, somebody who's had the lived experience like David had described and what we've done in the previous dialogue, we've been able to break it down into 5 areas, and David has touched on those. So the first area being denial. We're in denial. There's acceptance, there's treatment, there's recovery, and there's reflection. So even though David wasn't really talking about he was in denial, he just said he didn't have any symptoms. But in a sense, he did take us through those other steps. And that's, I'll go back again. So it's denial. And that's the point that David is cautioning all men, all of us against, but not just the men, but the women as well, the female in the families, because again, all the evidence shows most men in the end go and get that PSA test because of pressure from female members of their family, because of the impact, particularly at their particular point in their lives, the devastation it has on the whole family. So that's,
Yeah, Rudy, I had a female friend, and she said, she told me she basically had to drag her partner to
yeah,
get the test. And she said she got fed up because he was up every 5 minutes in the night.
yeah,
And she knew that that wasn't right. Something wasn't right. So in the end, she took him and he was diagnosed. So the females, whether it's partners, daughters, nieces, aunts, it's really important. And sometimes you literally do have to drag the guys down to the doctor to get the blood test.
And as they say, there's an old saying, no man is bigger than his disease.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so
And the other thing about denial, although I might not have said that I was doing it in a strict sense, but even when I went to see the doctor, my thing was, I'll go to the doctor, I'm doing the right thing. They're going to do the blood test and I'll be fine. So that was my mindset.
yeah,
And then it just proves that you should. And the other thing I say to guys, because some guys still do it, they try to self-diagnose. They kind of say, oh,
yeah,
I'm getting on a bit and this, so this change in my body must be about this and that. No, you don't. If there's changes in your body that you weren't born with, the doctors are the best people to check you out. Don't try and self-diagnose, or don't kind of say, well, I'm over 50 now or over 60, so it must be because I'm getting on in years, something's happened. You just, yeah, it's really not worth. We've all got to get ill one day, we've all got to go, but why go 15, 20, 25 years when your family could still, you could still be with your family?
And it is absolutely about self-care as well. And you know, anybody here in this country using the NHS service, you can be well and still demand a PSA test from the age of 45. You know, so it is important that you do insist on that, because the entitlement is there. So thank you very much for that, David.
And also, Rudy, in terms of getting help and support, there are support networks. Apart from telling every man that I knew physically, I also set up a Facebook page which has survivors, families of survivors, or families of those who didn't make it, consultants, all sorts of people. But charities like the Prostate Cancer UK, they have specialist nurses. You can always phone up in confidence and discuss any issues or concerns. And there are there's Cancer, Black Care, and many other.
There's quite a lot now. And places like, and you mentioned Guy's in St. Thomas, which has a top class reputation here in the UK, that you can just go along and get the test, you know. And again, we're entitled to that as an NHS service. Thanks for that, David. I'd now like to move over to Professor Frank. Good evening, Frank. Long time no see.
Evening, Rudy.
And so I'd just like to pass over to you for the next 20 minutes or so that we can then have a few Q&A at the end.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I think I will just talk rather than trying to show slides, which might take me a while to kind of sort out. So I think I'll just talk. So I've missed the first hour, I'm afraid to say. So another call. So I'm not quite sure what Vasco covered, and I caught the end of David's.
I could tell you very quickly, Frank. So Vasco covered primarily the diet and nutrition and what we should eat, and the background very much to the healthy living and lifestyle presentation.
Okay. So prostate cancer, as many of you will know, it's the most common cancer in men. I think worldwide it's the second most common cancer, and one of the reasons why it's of particular interest to this audience is that it's more common in Black men. Now, whether you're Black in West Africa or South Africa or the Caribbean or Brazil or the UK or in America, there's something about being Black, specifically actually from the West African diaspora, that gives you a 2 to 3-fold risk of developing prostate cancer. And interestingly, if you look at the slave trade and you look at where those people were taken from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, and so on, and where they ended up throughout the world, that's where you get the highest rates of prostate cancer. So something about being Black confers that increased risk. And that's why it's so important for us to know about it and to talk about it. Why do we have that increased risk? What is it about being of the West African diaspora that gives us that risk? We still don't know the answer to that question. There is ongoing research looking at genetic studies of Black men from various places in the world to try and tease out what is it in our genetic makeup. Well, we assume it's something in our genetic makeup that gives us that increased risk. Now, because in the UK, there is no national screening program for prostate cancer, we have to take it upon ourselves, as has been mentioned previously, to get the PSA blood test. I think it's a travesty, and I continue to badger the various governments, and have done so for the last 20 years. I think it's a travesty that we don't screen for prostate cancer. And so we screen for colon cancer, we screen for breast cancer, cervical cancer, aortic aneurysm, all sorts of things we screen for, but we do not screen for the most common condition out of all of these, which is prostate cancer. There's lots of reasons why the NHS isn't screening at present, and if time allows, we can kind of get into that. But because no one is going to ask you to come in and have the blood test, it's for you to go and see your GP, as is your right to say, I would like to have a PSA blood test. PSA stands for prostate specific antigen. So it's a chemical that the prostate gland puts out into the bloodstream, and there is always a certain level of this PSA in your bloodstream. The problem comes when this PSA is higher than it should be, because with prostate cancer, you get more of this PSA being pushed out into your bloodstream by the prostate gland. Now, I think Rudy said from the age of 45, you're entitled to a PSA, and that is true. However, we are finding men younger and younger, particularly Black men actually, getting prostate cancer. So my advice now is from the age of 40 to go along to your GP and ask for a PSA blood test. It's a cheap blood test. It probably costs the NHS a £5, if that. So it's certainly worth having. And in fact, we're seeing some men younger than that coming through with prostate cancer. So I would say definitely from the age of 40. Now, I'm even saying now, if you've got say a dad with prostate cancer, maybe a brother with prostate cancer, you should probably start getting your PSA from the age of 35, rather than waiting to 40 or even 45. And the reason for getting your PSA done, as David alluded to, is you may have no symptoms whatsoever, whether urinary symptoms, sexual symptoms, pain, you may have no symptoms whatsoever, and yet you can still be harboring prostate cancer. And the trouble is, oftentimes, by the time you start getting symptoms, it may be too late to actually cure the prostate cancer. So I saw a man this afternoon who developed backache. He developed backache, and he went to his GP. His GP ordered us an X-ray of his back, and it showed abnormalities in his back. The GP then ordered a PSA because he thought maybe he's got cancer in the bones of his back, and this man's PSA was 174. Now, the normal PSA should be less than 3.5 to 4. Depends on your age, what normal PSA is. So this man's PSA, rather than being less than 4, was 174. And so this man has got prostate cancer that has spread into his bones without having, symptoms until the backache. Now, had he had his PSA done, say, last year or the year before that, it would have been at a lower level. And we would have found it at a stage where we could eradicate it, whether by surgery or radiation or by some other means. So the most important message is, just because you're entirely well doesn't mean you haven't got prostate cancer. So get yourself checked out. One of the reasons why men, particularly Black men, it must be said, have been reluctant to go to the GPs is because they don't want to have a rectal examination. A rectal examination is where the doctor puts gloves on, lubricates the finger, and puts it into the back passage to actually feel the prostate gland. Because at times, by feeling the prostate gland, you can get a good indication of whether it's enlarged or not, or whether it's cancerous or not. However, the blood test is far more important than any rectal examination. And in fact, I hardly do rectal examinations these days, even though I've got a certain expertise after 40 years of doing rectal examinations. But even for me doing a rectal examination, the information I gain over and above the blood test is very limited indeed. So actually, there's no need in primary care, i.e. the GP, to do a rectal examination. And even in hospitals, if the man's PSA is raised, I'm going to start doing the test to see if he's got prostate cancer. I'm not going to have to do a rectal examination because it's not going to help me any further. Now, what are before we come on to the possible symptoms, what are the risk factors for developing prostate cancer? The first one is age. Okay, so it's more common as you get older. Okay, it's more common as you age. Family history is very important. Most of you will recognize that if you have a family member, an uncle, brother, cousin, father with prostate cancer, most people now will appreciate that they have an increased risk. And therefore, if you have a family history of prostate cancer, then you need to take seriously, because it can pass down from the family. You need to take that seriously and get a PSA blood test. What is less well known nowadays, is that on the mother's side, if there's breast cancer or ovarian cancer on the mother's side, or a sister, for example, but on the mother's side, then your risk of prostate cancer is also increased. So nowadays, we don't just ask the man about his father's side or his brothers. We ask about on the maternal side, if there's a history of breast cancer or ovarian cancer. That will increase your risk of prostate cancer. There are certain genes that we do know of that give you an increased risk of prostate cancer. For example, there's genes called BRCA1 and BRCA2. So these are things in your genetic makeup. And if you happen to have one of these genes, BRCA1 or BRCA2, then you are at increased risk of developing prostate cancer. And so we would be testing you more regularly. Now, having said that you can have no symptoms whatsoever, there are certain urinary symptoms that indicate that you may have a problem with your prostate gland. Now, these are the symptoms of prostate enlargement. Every man over 50, the prostate gland begins to enlarge. So the prostate gland is about the size of a walnut, and it sits underneath the bladder, and it's got a hole in the middle for the urine to pass through. And as men age, the prostate, as it enlarges, begins to squeeze the water pipe running through the middle. And so you start getting urinary symptoms. Your flow becomes slower. There's a delay before it gets going. You may have to go more often to pee because your bladder can't empty properly because of the prostate causing a blockage. You have to get up at night 2, 3, 4 times. You may have urgency. So once you get the feeling that you want to go, you can't hold it. You've got to go quickly and empty your bladder. So these are the symptoms that indicate some problem with the prostate. Most of the time, fortunately, it's the benign, non-cancerous enlargement. But at times, these symptoms will actually be due to prostate cancer. So you can't tell by the symptoms whether you've got prostate cancer or the ordinary benign prostate swelling that happens with age. Other things that may indicate prostate cancer is erection difficulties. So difficulty in getting an erection or maintaining an erection. At times, that's actually due to prostate cancer. I mentioned this gentleman presenting with pain in his back. If the prostate cancer spreads, it spreads to the bones. And at times, the first time it comes to attention is when the man presents with backache. Or even if the cancer has reached the spinal cord, at times we do see men presenting with paralysis. They suddenly become paralyzed because the prostate cancer in the spinal column has kind of blocked off the nerves that control the legs. So we hope not to see that. We hope to find prostate cancer when it's early, confined to the prostate gland. And the cure rate, if you catch prostate cancer early, it's something like 98%. Okay, it's incredibly high. If the prostate cancer has already spread into what we call the lymph glands or the bones, then that you can't cure that. There's lots of drugs, lots of powerful drugs that can contain it for perhaps many, many years, but they can't actually get rid of it. So you can only get rid of it if you find it early and treat it. Now, supposing you've taken the advice given to you by various people this evening, and tomorrow morning you go make an appointment, you see your GP, and you say, I want to have a PSA blood test because I am Black and I am at increased risk. You get the PSA done. It comes back as normal. That's great. Do it the next year. Do it every year. Okay. But let's say it comes back as being, say, 5, and I've told you before, it should be less than 3, 3.5 kind of thing. Say it comes back as 5. What then happens? Well, what will happen, or what should happen, is that your GP should refer you urgently to see a urologist, such as myself. So I'm a consultant urologist. I deal with the prostates day in and day out. I work in East London for Barts Health NHS Trust, so the Royal London, Whipps Cross, Newham hospitals, also at London Bridge Hospital and London Independent in the private sector. So your GP will refer you to someone like myself, and I will ask questions, family history, have you got any symptoms or not? But I will send you for an MRI scan. An MRI scan takes about 40 minutes. It takes about 40 minutes to do an MRI of the prostate gland. And that takes very detailed pictures of your prostate. And from the MRI, you can see areas of the prostate that look abnormal or look normal. If there's abnormal looking areas, then the next step would be to do a biopsy, what we call a transperineal biopsy. So we put a needle into the prostate through, usually under local anesthetic injections. We put a needle into the prostate through the perineum. Now, the perineum is the skin behind your testicles in front of your back passage. So it's actually what you sit on. The prostate lies deep in there. So I would organize for you to have a biopsy of your prostate where several samples are taken, and then that goes off to the pathologist to analyze to see if there's prostate cancer or not. If there's no prostate cancer, wonderful, do your PSA next year, and then, you know, and so on. If, however, it turns out that you do have prostate cancer, and the MRI will tell us if there's any sign of disease outside the prostate gland, okay? So if you do have prostate cancer and there's no sign of it outside the prostate gland, then there are a variety of options, very good options of dealing with the prostate cancer and eradicating it. One of them, David Michael had, which is radical surgery, so-called radical prostatectomy. Another equally good option is radiation therapy, where you can fire effectively high-energy X-rays through the skin onto the prostate gland and destroy the prostate cancer. So external radiotherapy. There's a third option that we call brachytherapy, where instead of using high-energy beams externally, you can insert these radioactive pellets through the perineum into the prostate, where they lodge permanently and give off radiation internally, which destroys the prostate cancer. It's a procedure that takes a couple of hours, and it's a one-off thing. Surgery, radiation, external radiation, brachytherapy. The results, if you look at 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, it's the same. So men are doing equally well, whether they've had major surgery or external radiation or the internal brachytherapy seeds. So there's no difference in the long-term outcome. Some people would prefer to have surgery. Some people don't want surgery. They'd rather have radiation. There's differences in some of the side effects of these various treatments, but the main message I want to give is that these treatments, in terms of curing the prostate cancer, are equivalent. Okay. Now, more recently, there has been the concept has come in called focal therapy, FOCAL, focal therapy. Now, where's this come from? If we look at breast cancer, many years ago, if a woman had breast cancer, she would have the breast removed, you know, mastectomy. Nowadays, that rarely happens. If a woman has breast cancer, they'll remove the lump and leave the rest of the breast alone because there's no disease in the rest of the breast. Now, similarly, we are now in the era whereby we can just treat part of the prostate gland and not remove the whole thing or not irradiate the whole thing. You can just treat one part of the prostate gland, either using what we call cryotherapy, which is where you use very intense cold, and you inject cold gas into the prostate to destroy one area of the prostate gland. Or you can use what's called high intensity focused ultrasound, otherwise known as HIFU, where again, you can use very high heat directed just at the area of the prostate where the cancer is and spare the rest of the prostate gland. And the advantage of focal therapy is that the side effects are much less because you're not destroying the whole prostate gland, okay? Now, whether you're suitable for focal therapy depends on the size of your prostate gland, how much cancer there is within your prostate gland, is it widespread or is it just in one area, and how aggressive the cancer cells are looking. So not everyone is suitable for focal therapy, but that's something your urologist or your oncologist, which is a cancer specialist, will discuss with you. the outcomes of just treating parts of the prostate seem to be pretty good, although it's relatively early days. It's only been around for about 7 or 8 years, whereas the other treatments I've mentioned have been around, a very long time indeed. Whatever treatment you have, you will need lifelong follow-up in case it recurs. Now, even if you have your prostate gland removed altogether, it doesn't mean you can't have a recurrence. And the reason that can happen is that one cancer cell could already have got out into the pelvis. You've removed the prostate gland. You can't see these microscopic cancer cells that have already gone outside the prostate. And sometime later, maybe years later, the PSA, which falls when you treat the prostate gland, PSA can start to rise. And then when you have more scans, you see actually the cancer has recurred. So some men have the feeling, if I remove it, I can never have prostate cancer again. That's unfortunately isn't the case. So whatever treatment you have, you will require follow-up. The other important concept to mention about prostate cancer is that a lot of men with early disease, small volume, relatively low PSA, can actually go on to what we call active surveillance. Active surveillance, which means keeping a close eye on that man's prostate cancer, because it may never grow. It may never grow, and it may never need treatment. So we call that active surveillance. Again, not everyone is suitable for this active surveillance. Depends on how much cancer there is in your prostate, depends on what we call the Gleason score, which is an indicator of the shape of the cancer cells, how aggressive they are likely to be. So the advantage, of course, if you have active surveillance, which means regular PSAs, regular MRI scans, the advantage of that is that you don't suffer any side effects from the treatments. All the treatments for prostate cancer, good as they are in eradicating the disease, have side effects, which can be serious side effects. Now, we know that some prostate cancers will never cause a problem. So when we identify a man as having one of those small, unlikely to cause a problem prostate cancers, what we call Gleason 6 prostate cancers, then we can monitor that man by regular testing, and most of those men will never need the radical treatments for prostate cancer. So in summary, the treatments for prostate cancer, if you have it, active surveillance, that's keeping a close eye, radical surgery, radical prostatectomy, external radiation, brachytherapy, and focal therapy with high heat or high cold into the prostate gland. And as I said before, the results of treatment are very good. Now, if unfortunately your prostate cancer has spread, by the time you're diagnosed, it's already into your lymph nodes, or it's already into your bones, or if unfortunately you're one of the very few who has radical treatment, but it comes back again, there are very good and powerful drugs now that can suppress the prostate cancer, often for many years. So there are a group of drugs which are given by injection, which reduce the man's testosterone. Testosterone, which is what makes us men, women have estrogen, men have testosterone. Unfortunately, if you have prostate cancer, testosterone will cause it to keep on growing. So if you reduce the man's testosterone by injections, that will shrink the prostate cancer that's gone outside the prostate gland. It won't get rid of it, it won't cure it, but it'll put it into a dormant state. But after a period of time, which is variable from man to man, the body gets used to the injections suppressing the testosterone, and you have to change to other drugs. So there's lots of drugs now that we can use to treat men who've got advanced prostate cancer. And I've certainly had men with what we call stage 4 prostate cancer at diagnosis, where it's spread all around the body, that we've treated and kept going for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, you know. Others are not so lucky, and it might be a year or perhaps a bit longer. So it's very variable, but certainly even with advanced prostate cancer, you can live well for many years, depending on how your body responds to the various powerful drugs available. So, in summary, take prostate cancer seriously. It's more common in Black men. Because the government is not calling us for screening, we have to take that upon ourselves and go and get the blood test, irrespective of whether we got symptoms or not. The diagnosis is made after MRI scan and biopsy of the prostate. If it's found early, there's a lot of very good treatments. It's not one size fits all. There's different treatments, different side effect profiles. If it's already spread, there are very powerful drugs that can suppress that prostate cancer for many years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Frank. Can you just say something about when somebody's had their prostate removed and their sex life?
Yeah, so if you've had your prostate gland removed entirely, probably maybe 7 out of 10 men will have problems with erections. It's not invariable. It depends on whether the nerves that control the erections are able to be saved, preserved, or whether they've had to remove the nerves alongside the prostate gland. So it's variable. But if we just, as a, you know, for argument's sake, say 7 out of 10 men will have problems, permanent problems with getting an erection. Now, there are lots of ways we have at our disposal for enabling the man to get erections artificially after surgery. So we start off with the drugs, such as Viagra, you'll be familiar with. There's other drugs as well that you can take tablet by mouth, and that can give a decent erection. You have to take a tablet each time, mind you. We can also put injections. There's drugs you can inject into the penis. Again, every time you want to have sex, you would put an injection into the penis. That works well. If you don't like the sound of that, then there's a vacuum pump. A vacuum pump is like a plastic tube you put over the penis and you pump the air out of it, and that draws blood into the penis. You remove the plastic cylinder and slip a ring down to the bottom of the penis to keep the blood in the penis. Then after you've had sex, you remove the ring and the penis then goes down. So again, that works well. There's also a cream you can put on the end of the penis. You can called Eroxon. That can give men the ability to get an erection. And if all of these things fail or are not suitable, it's possible to have further surgery where you implant these kind of silicone rods into the penis, which you can activate to make the penis hard or deactivate to make the penis soft. So a penile implant can restore someone's sex life. So it can be managed. It can be managed.
Yeah, thanks for that. Could you say a bit about, we always talk about the care pathway and some of the dialogues that people necessarily have to have with the urologist. And of course, with a lot of people, they're very concerned and scared. That's one area. And also the other area around clinical trials and what's the latest in terms of our involvement and what's actually going on as it relates to clinical trials, and should we be getting involved more? Are there opportunities? What are the pathways? Somebody's mentioned about something at the Royal Marsden, and the various community or the academic research bodies around the NHS are being a bit more active. But of course, there's a challenge in the experience, which is still, I think, still off-putting for many people to take part in these trials.
Yes, for historical reasons and good historical reasons, Black people in general have been reluctant to take part in clinical trials. But I think some of the sins of the past, are now firmly in the past. And the fact of the matter is, you're more likely to benefit from taking part in the clinical trial, particularly of a new drug. So some of the drugs that we use in prostate cancer that you may have come across, like abiraterone, enzalutamide, docetaxel, and so on. The people who were in the clinical trials lived far longer than those who didn't have access to that. Mm-hmm. So some of these men that I've mentioned with very advanced disease that lived for 14 years, the reason they lived so long was because they had access to or availed themselves of clinical trials when these new drugs were being tested. And so certainly I would encourage, if you're given the opportunity, or you can ask for the opportunity, are there any trials that I may be suitable for? Because people in the clinical trials do better than those people not in the clinical trial. Because they have access to the latest cutting edge drugs, which are usually incredibly expensive, and it's ages before the NHS pays for them. But more importantly, if you're on a clinical trial, you have a much closer eye kept on you. You have more visits, you have more tests. If there's anything going wrong, it's picked up quicker if you're part of a clinical trial. Certainly, most of the big teaching institutions, Royal Marsden, Imperial, parts of London, Guy's, and so on, and in fact, throughout the country, there will be big cancer centers. Most of those would have a clinical trial of a new agent or a new technique that's they're developing, or trying to get the evidence to say this should be used more widely. So yeah, take part in clinical trials and ask if there's any you can participate in, because you're likely to do better in terms of your disease. In terms of the prostate cancer pathway, one of the things to appreciate now is that we have multidisciplinary meetings, so-called MDTs. So every new case is discussed by a multidisciplinary team, which comprises urologists, oncologists, radiotherapists, nurse specialists, radiologists, and so on. And so all these people will input into what they think might be the best treatment option for you. So it's when you're seen in clinic, in the specialist prostate clinic, it's for the benefit of a lot of people's input. So it's not just one doctor, one oncologist, one urologist that's saying, yes, you must have this. There would have been a big team discussion about your treatment. And the nurse specialists are very important, because they are your advocates, and they are people that you will have a lot of contact with. And the other thing that we're far more conscious of now is that, this prostate cancer really, disrupts someone's life, their work, their family, their relationships, and so on. So what the nurse specialists do now is what's called a holistic needs assessment, which means not just looking at the fact you've got cancer, but how does that affect the whole? And is there another support you need over and above the direct cancer treatment? So for example, men may be having psychological issues, getting adjusted to their disease. So there are psychologists that can help with that. Some men find themselves in financial hardship. And so we signpost those men to Macmillan, who've got very good financial advice. At times we might have to write to someone's employer because they're being difficult. At times people say, how am I going to tell my kids? How am I going to tell, those close to me? And so the nurse specialists either can help you with that or signpost you to other support services that can help with that.
Yeah, and you, in a sense, you're touching on this whole self-care as well as the self-management element to this. And if you think of the self-care, prevention being better than cure, our community, we have many, many people and businesses involved in natural herbs, natural foods. So in a sense, it's not to blame the system in terms of eating well and what we should eat, because again, Vasco, you know, Vasco's been on the road for many years, informing our community, you know, what we should and what we shouldn't be eating. So, and we understand there's a cultural aspect, you know, there's generational in terms of what we've been eating, but I think we don't want people to not accept that we have a responsibility for taking care of ourselves and our families. And within that, we do have people in our community who know what the herbs and the juices, the shops on every high street, you know, virtually, okay, I'm probably talking about London and our major cities and towns, but they are accessible, and the community, the people do exist in our community. They're online, they're on Facebook, they're in WhatsApp groups. So it's not as though our community don't know where to go, don't know what to eat. We do, because we have many clever people in the system, in the community, clever people in the system like you, you know, sharing with our community what we shouldn't, you know, and what is in our best interests. So I think that's an important point. And our focus has always been about, we're promoting prostate health, prevention being better than cure, and ensure, you know, we do act and take care of ourselves and our families. So thank you very much for that, Frank.
I must just say, add one thing to that self-care, which is the vital role of exercise.
Yeah.
You know, it's been shown that exercise reduces the risk of prostate cancer recurrence.
Yeah.
Whether it helps prevent it in the first place, we don't have the evidence for that, but it just seems sensible. And keeping weight down, obesity, it's, you know, people who are obese, they fare less well with prostate cancer. They get more aggressive disease, actually.
Yeah.
So eat well, as you said.
Yeah.
Keep your weight down, exercise, and get vitamin D. Expose yourselves to the sunlight. And if you haven't got the sunlight, then take vitamin D supplementation. Vitamin D is protective against prostate cancer. Well, in fact, all cancers, actually.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Frank. As usual, thank you, Vasco. And I'll just pass back to Nadia. Before I let you have the last word.
That's all right.
Just to let everybody know that this whole show will be rebroadcast again, 10:30 this evening. You just need to go to www.freshfmradiolondon.com, and the whole show will be rebroadcast from 10:30 p.m. this evening. And we do have a regular show every week on Fresh FM, normally on the Monday, 11 a.m. with an ongoing series around prostate health. So again, in our community, there's a lot of information that's being shared. As David mentioned, there are a lot of prostate health groups. I guess where we need to do a bit more work in our community is around mental health. As Frank mentioned, you know, the impact on mental health. So we've got to do much more in terms of self-care and get involved and get more communities of practice, more men getting together to have a dialogue about these issues. And last point I'll make on this, most men in the end who do go, and as Frank said, we need to go earlier, because it used to be seen as a middle-aged man's disease, but it, you know, it sets in earlier. If you can go 35, 40, and you know, best to do it. It's important to find out about the family, what's gone on in the family history before, which historically may have been a bit of a secret within our families. So we have to take responsibility and take care of ourselves and our families. So Nadia, over to you for the last word. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I'm really excited that we were able to do this program this evening. It's here to give us the support and advice, to give you information that you'll be able to then make an informed decision. So I'd like to thank Vasco, David Michael, yourself, Rudy, and of course, Professor Frank, for coming on this Zoom that's been rolled out by the Holistic Empowerment Lifestyle Program. And we wish to do many more things that's going to support our community. So we've still got a long way to go. We've got diabetes, we've got high blood pressure, so these are the things that we want to help address our community and ensure that we're able to support going forward. And I think that's what we're getting back as a feedback. We don't want anybody to feel that they're alone. So today's session, powerful, and thank you very much for all attending. And hopefully you've got something out of this. And I'm sure tomorrow the doctors will get it lots of appointments as to when you're going to go and get your PSA. Please do. And thank you very much.
Thank you and good night all.
Good night.